taken, Constable. I'm not for a moment suggesting that you have any hatred for black people. What I am saying is that your description of the identity parade shows that it was irregular and against normal police practice, and that you did not receive cooperation in setting it up.
That's not true, sir.
The selection of my client from this identity parade was a very botched affair, wasn't it?
No, sir, it was a positive identification.
Positive, Constable? But you said that Mr. Simmons stared hard at Mr. Dempsey. It was, however, Mrs. Palmer who actually spoke first, saying that's the other one, to which Simmons replied, I knew it was.
Mrs. Palmer was in a much better position to see Dempsey than the victim, Mr. Simmons, was. He said he was being held from behind during the attack, but he did recognise the smell of Dempsey's hair oil.
Do you recall a day in August last year when you and some of your colleagues broke up a so-called Black Power meeting at a house in Smith Street?
I remember being given a search warrant and detailed to search number 10 Smith Street for arms last summer. Yes, sir.
What movement was it, Constable? Home Rule for Shropshire?
No, sir. It was a black militant organisation.
Black Power. You must have come across the name.
I have, sir. But the organisation in question did not call itself that.
Did you not take the name of John Dempsey as being present at that meeting?
I was detailed to search. It was an inspector that took names, sir.
I see. Did you find any arms, by the way?
No, sir.
Then why were the names taken? I assume the meeting was peaceable, orderly.
I can't answer that, sir.
Can't or won't?
I can't, sir. I do not have the authority to ask the motives behind the actions of my senior officers, sir.
And you have no recollection of Mr. Dempsey at that meeting?
None, sir.
You have no recollection of him later?
None.
Well, returning to this so-called identity parade, we'd heard how Mr. Simmons first stopped at Mr. Dempsey, and then how Mrs. Palmer pointed him out as one of the men that you'd seen at the end of the alley.
That's correct, sir.
Who led this procession?
Mr. Simmons.
And where were you, Constable?
Just behind him, sir.
With Mrs. Palmer behind you?
Yes, sir.
And then you stopped at Dempsey?
Mr. Simmons did, sir.
During the entire performance of this parade, did you speak to anybody?
No, sir.
Not a word?
It is not in accordance with police training, sir.
Constable Kershaw, I put it to you that the unorthodox methods you have earlier admitted using were fully in display at this identity parade, and that far from keeping silent, you kept up a ceaseless barrage of remarks as you walked up the line with your two eyewitnesses.
I did not, sir.
And that when you got to Mr. Dempsey, you said, here we have our revolutionary. He'd like to beat up every white man he can find. He hates us all, our clever little intellectual. Take a good look. He's your man.
I didn't say any of that, sir.
Mr. Dempsey had an alibi.
His girlfriend.
Why did you discount it?
Because two unbiased witnesses swore they saw him take part in the attack.
Unbiased, Mr. Kershaw? Well, what would he have needed to prove that these two witnesses were mistaken?
More than the word of a girlfriend, sir.
Mr. Kershaw, had Mr. Dempsey been going to the youth club surrounded by the Everton Football Club, you would still say that their combined evidence was not enough to gainsay yours, wouldn't you?
I'm a keen supporter of Everton, sir.
The identification of Mr. Dempsey was surrounded by eccentric and irregular incidents, and it was by no means impartial, clear, or positive, as the law requires. I have no further questions of this witness, my lord.
According to your evidence, my client failed to give an alibi.
That's correct, sir.
Did he not say, I was here all the time, ever since 8 o'clock?
No one in the club would swear that he hadn't left it for a short period. Say 5 minutes, all the time it would need to go a few hundred yards, rob Mr. Simmons and get back to the club, sir.
Yes. Well, I put it to you that more than a dozen people backed up his story, but that you said, you're all bloody liars, the lot of you. You are born that way, and you marched Langham out.
That's not true, sir.
When you approached Langham in the lineup, did you not say, what about this one? He's a right little villain.
I did not, sir.
Constable Kershaw, have the police ever secured a conviction against Langham for robbery with violence or for stealing with the use of force?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, officer. That concludes the case for the prosecution, my lord.
You may stand down, Constable Kershaw.
Thank you, sir.
Lord Vice, first witness for the defence is the defendant, John Dempsey.
What is your religion?
I wish to affirm.
Please read aloud the words on this card.
I do solemnly
sincerely and truly declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You are John Harold Dempsey of 67 Garfield Avenue, Fulchester.
Yes,
What is your occupation, Mr. Dempsey?
I'm a student,
How old are you?
19.
With whom do you live in Fulchester?
With my uncle. My parents are dead.
Did you, on the 4th of November last, attack Arthur Simmons in an alley known as Paradise Way and steal money from him?
I did not.
What were you doing between 8:30 and 9:15 on that night?
At 8:30, I was in a flat belonging to Linda Brown,
Who's Linda Brown?
a companion,
And where is this flat?
Jeffreys Road,
And how far is Jeffreys Road from Paradise Way?
3/4 of a mile.
Roughly?
No, precisely.
What did you do after 8:30?
At about 8:45, we began to walk round to the Kingston Beach Club.
Who did?
Linda and I.
No one else?
No,
Go on, please.
there isn't much more to go on about. I suppose we must have arrived at the club a few minutes after 9.
Do you know, are you friendly with the other defendant in this case, Colin Langham?
We know each other. We've seen each other at the club. I wouldn't say we were friends.
Would you describe what happened when you arrived at the club?
We'd been there about 10 minutes when Kershaw came in with 2 white people, Mr. Simmons and Mrs. Palmer.
Did you know either of them?
I'd never seen them before in my life.
Go on, please.
Tom Revy turned off the jukebox.
Tom Revy is the club leader.
Yes, Uncle Tom to his friends.
Just continue with your evidence, please.
Revy called out for everyone to stop talking. He said Kershaw wanted everyone to line up against a wall.
And what was your reaction to this request?
Humiliation, anger, frustration.
Did you know that you didn't have to comply?
I complied for the same reasons I've agreed in the past to stand up against a wall and be searched by Constable Kershaw.
And what were those reasons?
If one does not comply, life can become very uncomfortable.
In what way?
There are 1,000 ways a policeman can lean on you.
Did anybody else object to standing in this lineup?
Yes, there was a lot of complaining and shouting going on. But no one stood up on his rights, no.
What was your position in the identity parade?
I was about 20th. There must have been 30 of us all told.
Will you describe what happened, please?
The old man came first, and he looked scared, but Kershaw kept on telling him not to be afraid.
Did you say anything else?
As everyone in that lineup will tell you, he never stopped talking. I mean, he turned on like some master of ceremonies. Here we are, folks, he'd say to the old man and the lady. I know it's dark in here, but do your best. Black as the ace of spades, as you might say. They're all bent, this crowd, the lot of them. And he kept that up the whole time. When he saw me, his piggy little eyes shone like a light.
That will do, young man.
I'm sorry.
What occurred when they came to you, Mr. Dempsey?
Kershaw stopped the whole procession. Well, 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 he said. If it isn't our own revolutionary Sambo Lenin.
What,
himself.
if anything, did that mean to you?
Oh, I was impressed.
Impressed? Why?
To realize that Kershaw had actually heard of Lenin.
And then?
I knew what he was getting at. I'm a member of a local organization which works towards equal rights for black people.
Is this black power?
Mr. Fry, it would seem the entire white race is locked onto 3 cliches. Black power. Black is beautiful. Kill whitey. When a black man stands up and says, black power, he's saying, I want my freedom. But it isn't the monster that most people seem to think it is.
But would you say that Constable Kershaw suffered from this same disability?
He's white, isn't he?
And for these reasons he kept you under observation?
He told you about busting up that meeting of ours last August. He came looking for guns. For God's sakes, what are we, the mafia? He never got over not finding any.
Well, Constable Kershaw said that at no time did he have knowledge of you until November the 4th.
I heard him say that.
After the words you say he addressed you in the lineup, here we have our own revolutionary. What then?
He went on to say, he wants to beat up all white folk. He's your one, he must be. And the 2 old ears who'd had to listen to this junk for the last 5 minutes finally gave in and said, yes, I was the one.
Thank you, Mr. Dempsey.
Mr. Simmons, do you wish to examine?
No, thank you, my lord.
You you familiar with a periodical called Black March? Well, are you?
I have heard of it.
You've more than just heard of it, haven't you?
It's written by some people at the college.
You've more than just heard of it, Mr. Dempsey, because you've written for this magazine. Is that not right?
Yes.
Yes. I would like to quote a passage from this issue dated May of last year. Black liberation will never become effective or achieve any substantial victory until its members accept the fact that a state of war exists between them and the white majority. Members must be prepared to fight such a war at every level, not only with polemic and invective, but also with fists and weapons. Now, this war is not of our choosing. We fight for our rights and our liberty, and as such we have justice on our side. Therefore, my brothers, take the war into the streets. We need money. We need support. We need weapons. Get them. Don't bother about the ethics. Go out and get them. Take them from the people who hold us down. Disarm them. Remember Spartacus. This article is signed by John Dempsey. Did you write this? Did you?
Yes.
The case of the Queen versus Dempsey and Langham will be resumed tomorrow in the Crown Court.